The cabin sat perched on the hill. It overlooked the town like a watchful eye. Mrs. Marlowe was alone there. Her only companion was Shadow. Shadow was a dog, large and black as night. His fur was thick, his eyes glowed with an unnatural light. He never strayed far from Mrs. Marlowe's side. Mrs. Marlowe was a small woman. Her face was etched with lines of grief. Her husband had vanished years ago. Only Shadow remained. The townsfolk whispered that Shadow was more than just a dog. They said he was a harbinger, a collector of souls. They said he guarded a dark secret. The wind carried the villagers' whispers up the hill. They spoke of Shadow in hushed tones. Some said he was a demon in disguise. They said he roamed the woods at night, his eyes burning like hot coals. He searched for lost souls. He brought them back to Mrs. Marlowe. The villagers believed Shadow knew the truth. He knew what happened to Mrs. Marlowe's husband. He guarded that secret fiercely. Mrs. Marlowe never spoke of her husband. She kept to herself, her silence amplifying the rumors. Only Shadow knew her pain. The storm raged around the cabin. Rain lashed against the windows. Wind howled like a banshee. A knock came at the door. Mrs. Marlowe opened it cautiously. A man stood on the step, drenched and shivering. "Please," he begged, "may I come in?" He was a traveller caught in the storm. He sought shelter. Mrs. Marlowe hesitated, then stepped aside. The man entered, bringing the storm's chill with him. Shadow watched the stranger. His eyes narrowed. He let out a low growl, a rumble that echoed the storm's fury. The clock struck midnight. Shadow rose from his place by the fire. He turned his head towards the window. A long, mournful howl escaped his throat. The traveller stirred in his sleep. He opened his eyes. Outside, the wind screamed. He could have sworn he saw figures in the mist. He scrambled to his feet, fear gripping his heart. He ran for the door, desperate to escape, but Shadow stood in his path. The traveller stumbled back, his eyes wide with terror. Shadow didn't move. He stood guard, a silent sentinel against the darkness. When morning came, the traveller was gone. Only the storm remained, and the whispers on the wind.